Okay, I'm gonna try to film this without my camera falling over. We'll see how far that goes. Hi, this is Hope again from Pros Before Bros, and welcome back to my channel. I'm finally back after taking a little bit of a break. Ugh, life, it's fun. Nothing too serious going on. Just took a little bit of a break for me to kind of just get caught up with things in my personal life and work life and just life in general. Man, I actually sent a second niece off to college. I bid her farewell. She is gone for at least until I think November is when she comes home for her first break. So that was an emotional roller coaster. So yeah, it's been a lot of adjustment around here. And then in addition to all that is we're slowly trying to renovate parts of our house and it's just been, it's exhausting, y'all. It's been really tiring. If only I knew what I knew, know now, when I first bought this house. I love this house so much. Don't get me wrong, but it's since yeah, it was built in like the 20s, so like everything is old and it's just like trying to catch up with everything that happens with it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting being a homeowner, but I wouldn't change anything about that. But anyways, I'm here to talk to you about three books I did finish up. um I know I probably read a couple more books beyond that, but honestly, these are the three that stick out in my head. And my reading has been kind of lagging lately, and I really need to get back into reading more books. I was thinking about actually going ahead and doing Contemporary Thon again this year. Let me know in the comments below if you guys are interested in that or if you are even participating. I know that's coming up. God, is it already next week? Yeah, it's coming up too quick. But anyway, if I have to do that, I better probably sit down and play my TBR. But okay, that's for another conversation. Let's just jump right into it. So, I believe the last time we talked and I did like a rating scale, I did like a 5 star down to 0 stars, what have you. I usually try to keep my opinions very conservative. I don't like to be like a completely harsh critic. I like to uh, gauge a lot of factors when it comes to some of my reading. And I try to do that with these three books that I'm about to talk about. So the first book I love. I love it so much. I actually did give it a 5 star, and I know I try to be critical, but this book definitely is worth a 5 star rating. And that is George Takei's They Called Us Enemy. Now, I was so excited about this book when George was talking about um, doing some sort of novelization on his life living in a Japanese internment camp. That's essentially what this book is about. It talks about his time in the 1940s as a Japanese American, someone that was born in the country, did not have any familiarity with with anything over in Japan except for some of the cultural practices that his parents would exercise. And there wasn't that much. They were very, I hate this word, Americanized, I guess. But those repercussions, obviously, due to the fact that Pearl Harbor happened, a lot of these Japanese American immigrants were basically swept out of their businesses, swept out of their homes, put in these concentration camps, and forced to live a daily life as prisoners, essentially. And it's very, I think, for me personally, it hits close to home because my Japanese heritage. Fortunately, my parents, my grandparents, when they moved back to the United States, well, let me correct that. My grandpa moved back to the United States, and my grandmother came with him. I guess I need to give you guys a background story, don't I? I never really talked about this. So, When my grandfather was 18 years old, he went ahead and joined the military. And after basic training, they sent him across seas over to Japan. And during this time, it was like right after, I believe it was like right, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I want to say it was right after Hiroshima happened, if I remember right. I really need to talk to my mom about this and get the details. It's right after Hiroshima, and he ended up being my grandmother over there. She was like a seamstress, laundress person in a hotel. He was in the hotel bar. He happened to see her come pick up the daily wash, and he was really lonely at that time. My grandfather just recently lost his sister in a car accident. It caused a lot of turmoil within his family. His mother was heavily sedated most of the time because of the traumatic experience of losing her youngest daughter. And then, of course, her son going off to war. So he was really depressed. He was down in the dumps. He happened to see my grandmother across the room. He thought she was absolutely beautiful. He finally got the courage to go over and talk to her using very, very little Japanese that he knew. And like they struggled through this. And finally, he was able to get across to her that he thought she was really pretty. And he wanted to teach her English. So during that time in the war, the song that was like on the billboards at that point was You Are My Sunshine. And just on random, he decided he was going to sing this song to her and teach her the words. And that's kind of how their love story began. So over time, he would teach her all these English phrases and English words using what he knew best was music. So after they got married, they actually had my mother and they had my uncle in Japan on the military base. And it was my grandfather's intention of staying in Japan. He wanted to live in Japan and become a photographer. But my grandmother at that point, during the time of the war, if you were born on military soil, that made you automatically an American. So my grandmother at that point was like, I feel like our kids would have so much of a better opportunity if they lived in the United States. They would get more opportunity to be, anything they want than what they would be here in Japan. So they actually came home, came from Japan. They moved back here and settled in Ohio. So that's kind of the little bit of a background story. When they moved here, it was like 1949. My mother at the time was like only, I think she was shy of her 1 year birthday. She was like a few months away from it. So she doesn't remember too much about the process of moving here and immigrating here. So, this book resonates for me in particular because when my mom was here, she would see some things. Well, she's still here. What am I talking about? When my grandmother was alive, she experienced quite a few times a lot of racial backlash because of her appearance. She was Asian. It was very clear that she was Asian. People would not shy away from calling her a Jap to her face, making very derogatory comments. And to this day, there's people that still say things that are extremely inappropriate, say things to my mother. And there's been times that I've been there and I witnessed it and I just kind of go off on them. Yeah, it's a really, really touchy subject. There's been many times I've had to bite my tongue as a person that has a very mixed race background. It's very difficult. It's very trying. But that was one reason why I wanted to read this book. The other reason I wanted to read this book is because of our current political status right now, our current political environment, if you will, with these detention camps. Some of the things going on in these camps are very reminiscent to what happened to the Japanese Americans. Some of it is far worse. And I think sometimes we forget that history has a way of repeating itself, and we need to remind ourselves constantly that we need to try to invoke change. It was a really hard book for me to read personally because of just the triggers. There was a couple times I was reading it and I would start crying. There was one instance where my husband had to ask me if I was okay, and I just had to put the book aside and kind of walk away and just kind of reflect, because some of the things that they discuss in here are happening now. So go in with that in mind if you choose to pick up this book. But this book is so good. It is a graphic novel, which I think is very important that it comes into a different format than just regular text. I'll be honest with you, when I was in high school, I didn't know that much about the Japanese internment, and I'm so ashamed to say that now because it's a part of my culture. It's just a part of our lives. It wasn't until my mom sat me down and really talked to me about what kind of atrocities happened during the 1940s. I really realized, this stuff isn't discussed in our classrooms. It's not really discussed inside our textbooks. And in fact, it made me go to the point where I was trying to research at the library, and I literally found like 2 books about it. So it was really a challenging assignment to try to find any information on this. I actually ended up writing a report, and one teacher who was white said I made it up. And I actually had to get the history teacher to back me up. It was a shit show. This is what happens when you grow up in the Midwest in the middle of cornfields. You run into this, and it can be so frustrating because, you have your sources, you have your information, but there are going to be people that yell false news. So yeah, that did happen. It really sucks. I'll probably leave that for another story time. But let me just show you these pictures here. So let's see, the author here obviously is George Takei, but the person that illustrated it was Elsinger Scott Becker, and he just did such a beautiful job. And I think you could really lay this in the hands of anybody at any age, whether it's a child up to somebody that's maybe an elder, and they struggle to read just regular text. And I feel like it will resonate with just about anybody across the board. I really wish that we could put this in every single history classroom there is in America. That way kids can learn about this history. And I mean, one thing that we often say is, our kids are our future. They are the ones that's going to take this country and turn it around, take the entire world and make a change. And I feel like in order to do that, we have to look back at our past and learn and educate ourselves from our past. So if there's any teachers out there and you're listening, whether you're a history teacher or you're an English teacher, I strongly recommend possibly going to your Board of Education and asking them to get this book into your hands and to get into the hands of your kids. That way they can learn maybe a dark side of history, but a way to persevere through something like this. Yeah. I kind of got on my soapbox there. I'm sorry, you guys. But I did give this 5 stars. I feel like it was just beautifully done. And I learned so much from it, even as somebody that researched it in the past, coming from my culture. I learned so much. And it is difficult to read if that's something that is haunting your past. But it was so worth it. It was really worth it. It made me appreciate so much about myself and about my family and our culture. But it also made me realize that we really need to take a change and try to turn things around. What's happening at the detention centers today is atrocious, and it shouldn't be happening at all. These children should be separated from their parents. Don't come for me because I stick to that belief. I try not to talk political on this channel, but sometimes it's not about politics anymore. It's about treating humans like humans and not like objects, and dehumanizing innocent people. So that's my 2 cents. But yeah, definitely 5 stars, definitely worth it. I am so glad I picked up that book. The second book that I finished reading for, I believe it was last month, is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is a lighter read than what that one was, obviously. This is a contemporary romance about a girl who... I feel like I'm opening can of worms here. Her name's Georgette, and she has this crush. She's in love with her brother's friend. He's been a childhood friend since they were kids. And Georgie's in love with him, and I can't even remember his last name. Isn't that terrible? I can't even remember his last name. Travis. And Travis doesn't really see Georgie as anything else but like a little sister sort of situation. He goes on and he gets into Major League Baseball, doesn't think any more about Georgie until he hurts himself. And during the process of being in the Major League Football, or I can't talk, Major League Basketball. Shit, I'm getting all these mixed up. Major League Baseball thing, he becomes kind of a flirtatious guy and has a reputation with the ladies. After he gets injured, obviously he can't play anymore. He gets sent home and he reconnects with Georgie and her family. Georgie is a part-time or full-time clown or something. Don't ask me, I don't know. And then her family has like a remodeling, flipping houses business, and he starts working for them. But anyways, him and Georgie decide to have an arrangement, and obviously, like everything else, they end up falling in love. So, my thoughts on this book. I gave it 3 stars. The smut in it is definitely worth 5 stars. There are some very smuttastic, smutty smut scenes in this book, and yes, they were steamy. They were nice. Okay, they were great. Loved it. What I didn't like is it was so corny. So Georgie has this full-time position as a clown, apparently, and she's upset because nobody takes her seriously. And okay, I guess I'm going to be one of those people that don't take you seriously, Georgie, because I don't understand. How can you work as a clown and be able to pay your mortgage and fix up your house? Like, how does that work? I am just curious. It was like racking my brain. I was like, seriously? Like, how much money do you make off these birthday parties? Are you sure you're not selling drugs? On the side? What are you doing at these clown birthday party thingies that you are making such mad money that you can make a mortgage payment and keep up with all your bills? Like, tell me your secret. So that was kind of and like the whole theme was that she wanted to be taken seriously, and she kept saying, I wish I was taken seriously. I wish I was taken seriously. And it was just kind of came off as whiny almost. Like, I wasn't feeling it. Georgie, I wasn't feeling you. Okay. It wasn't working for me. Travis was just a man whore. He was cute but like, he was just a man whore. And then like over the course of a couple weeks, he like professes his love to her. And at the end, he does so in like the corniest way. I'm not going to give any spoilers. It's just a corny shit show kind of a mess. It's not a horrible book. It just wasn't realistic for me. I'm a realist. I ask questions. I work at a bank. So all I do is ask the most difficult questions. I'm kind of the negative Nancy because I have to be the logical one. That's how I am. So I did give it 3 stars. The sex scenes was pretty much the pivotal of the reason why I'm giving it 3 stars. Otherwise, it was just okay. I'm so disappointed saying that because so many people were like just hyped up about this book. Like Melanie from Meltodani, Chelsea from Chelsea Dolan Reads. They both really like this book, and I love you guys. But it wasn't it for me. So, and the next book and the final book that I have to talk about is Technically You Started It by Lena Wood Johnson. This too was also a 3-star book for me. So, just to kind of give you guys a rundown of what this book was about. When a guy named Martin Nathaniel Monroe II texts you, it should be obvious who you're talking to. Except there's 2 of them. It's a long story, and Haley thinks she knows which one is the good one. A question about a class project rapidly evolves into all-consuming conversation. I don't know what I'm doing with the hand gestures today, y'all. Just bear with it. It's just part of gimmick. Haley finds that Martin is actually willing to listen to her weird facts and unused obsessions. Wait, unusual. What the hell is unused? Girl, get your shit together. Anyways, and Martin feels like Haley is the first person to see to really see who he is. Haley and Martin might be too awkward to hang out in real life, but over text, they become addicted to each other. There's just one problem. Haley doesn't know who Martin is, and Martin doesn't know that Haley doesn't know. We're just going with it. But they better figure out fast before their meet cute becomes an epic meat disaster. The wording here is just so weird. Okay, so I did give it 3 stars. One thing that I really enjoyed about this book is there is pansexual representation. Finally, it's not just, finally, there's pansexual representation. I can actually identify this book. Thank God. There's not enough of it. There's just not enough. But I really enjoyed that. And I also liked the uniqueness of this book. It's a blessing and a curse. And I'm going to go into detail about it. Just give me a second. Just cool down. The whole book is done in text. So this is what you're reading throughout the entire book. It is not any paragraphs. There's not any paragraphs. I cannot talk. It's just straight up text. Cool. That's all right. I'm kind of okay with that. But what really kind of just took away from this book being a 3-star to a 5-star is that very fact that it's all text. Now, if they probably mixed it up a little bit and had paragraphs with the text, this book would have been a solid 4 at the very least for me. But with it being all text, I felt like I was reading through, like I picked up somebody's cell phone and I was just eavesdropping and like reading through all their texts. You don't really get an idea of who that person is through just a simple text. So I didn't really have any descriptors to go with. I didn't know anything about the characters in terms of their physical attributes, any sort of quirks that they may have. Only what came through across in text. And we all say this on a regular basis, that a text or an email can read a certain way to just about everyone. Everyone perceives emails and texts a little differently. So the danger of writing in nothing but a text transcript sort of setting is that you don't know these people fully. You don't get a full picture, and you interpret that text exchange or that email exchange differently than what some other reader might. So I feel like that can really falter the book a little bit and cause the reader to become disengaged over time. I will tell you, this book, even though it's supposed to be like a super fast read and so supposed to be so easy, it took me about 2 weeks to get through, just because of the fact that I would just get disengaged. I would sit there and read 2 or 3 chapters of it and just be like, okay, I need a breather, because I feel like I'm not getting enough descriptors. And in fact, the chapters, I'm not going to say chapters anymore. It's broken up into day sequences, so day and time of the text. Is this a terrible book? Absolutely not. I think that somebody would appreciate that kind of writing style. If you have a hard time getting in depth into a book, maybe that would be a good go-to to kind of get you into it. If you have like a teenager that doesn't like to read, they might really enjoy it. Just for me, as a writer and as an avid reader for several years, it just didn't work for me. It just felt like I was missing so many pieces of the puzzle, and I was just coming into a conversation kind of in the middle. It just wasn't that great. So it was a 3 star. I'm really bummed. I wished I could have just bumped up to a 4, but there was just so many disadvantages that I had to stick it to a 3. And quite honestly, it'd be more like a 2.5. But I'm talking Goodreads. Goodreads really needs to do something about the rating system. But anyway, the cover's really pretty. And I know that one of the characters has pink hair. That's pretty fabulous. I don't know what's going on with the ice cream. And these people run it. I don't have a clue what happened there. But yeah, that is all I have right now in terms of books that I've read. I'm going to try really hard to read some more books this month. Hopefully Contemporary Thon will get me out of this funk I'm in. Currently I'm reading The House of Salt and Sorrows, and it's a really good book. I haven't had time to sit down and read, and it's driving me nuts. I'd love to read more, but yeah, life has just been fun. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books, or if you have additional commentary about these books, some thoughts that you might want to share. I am definitely into hearing your guys' responses. And of course, hopefully I'll have another video up here in the next few days. That way we can discuss other books that I've been hauling and reading mostly. But till then, thank you so much for tuning in. Once more, this is Hope from Pros Before Bros. Your friendly local book bitch, as my husband likes to call me, the book bitch. Let me know what you think below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.